You've got big projects to tackle, but your day gets swallowed up by repetitive tasks and constant inquiries. It's hard to make progress when you're stuck putting out fires. That's where Element 451's AI assistants come in. Acting like an extra set of hands, you get your time back for the high-impact projects. Ready to reclaim your time? Visit element451.com/AI team to learn more.
Welcome to The Hidden Gem, your go-to podcast that shines a spotlight on the strategic role of marketing and communications in shaping the future of community colleges. I'm your host, Maya Demishkevich, CMO at Carroll Community College. Every week, I sit down with community college leaders and industry experts to unpack strategies that work. We'll discuss practical insights and success stories to help you elevate your institution's profile and achieve your strategic goals. Tune in to amplify your community college's success, one conversation at a time. The Hidden Gem is part of the Enrollify network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. And let's get started.
And with that, I'm actually going to pull my screen share down so you can all see our panelists' lovely faces. And we're going to just rip the Band-Aid off because you guys know how we do it here at Enrollify. We do not mess around. So the point of today's session, many people fear that AI is going to depersonalize student engagement. Y'all, if I heard nothing expressed at the conferences I went to this fall, it was that. And I am so curious how you would each respond to that concern and any other thoughts you might want to share in your opening remarks. And Jamie, I'm going to pick on you first.
Thank you, Mallory. I find this such a fascinating question because I hear this too. And when I'm doing workshops across the country, I'm constantly hearing people saying some variation of this, so that this is one of their biggest concerns. And I find it absolutely fascinating because I feel like actually quite the opposite. I think that AI can really free up time for staff to focus on those high touch experiences that have much greater impact and value. And it also allows you to do a lot greater personalization, hyper-personalization, hyper-curation, those types of things that allow a student to feel like they're getting a more personalized experience. But really, when I think about generative AI, I think a lot of people think about it as a content generating tool. And I don't necessarily think that's its best use. I think that it can be super great at improving productivity and super great at brainstorming and being a thought partner for you. And those sorts of things free up your time to be able to do stuff that is much more engaged with students and much more hands-on with students. And that leads the students to feeling like they're getting a much more personalized experience.
Yeah, I agree entirely. I see so many, we keep talking about this on my podcast. It keeps coming up that all of these different AI use cases allow the tools to handle all of those repetitive, mundane tasks that we probably don't want to be doing anyway and spending our time on those. And it gives us time to be more strategic and more creative and more involved with our students to really understand what they need. And, being able to access our data and have AI find insights from our data, give us a much deeper insights into what our users needs, what they're looking for. And, moving forward, as this technology improves, we're going to get to the point where everyone has these like personal AI assistants so that people are going to have customized opportunities that fit their individual preferences. And, that's going to give us a much kind of more holistic view of what our students really want and what they need.
Mm-hmm. Mallory, the sentiment you mentioned that you're hearing at conferences, etc., it's interesting because I'm personally yet to meet a student who is concerned about AI dehumanizing student experience or engagement. And my question is dehumanized compared to what? How is the engagement at different higher ed institutions humanized now? Is it humanized by sending the same generic email to all of your prospects, or is it by putting people on hold to wait for the next representative, or is it by having them navigate your website for hours trying to find the right contact, or is it by so what is it helping really create us real human connections, what we're currently doing? And at the same time, AI can assist students during that process and provide answers instantly so they can get the information they need in the most effective and efficient way. So to me, AI is perfect for enhancing productivity and increasing the student satisfaction. And when I talk to my colleague and colleagues from other institutions, I often hear them talk about productivity and how they know they don't have enough time and they wish they could clone themselves or could clone their team. And I do believe that AI is that clone that will help us handle those repetitive, like you said, Brian and Jamie, those repetitive time-consuming tasks and give us more time to focus on creating those meaningful personalized experiences and connections and amplify what we do best, which is connect with the people we serve. So
No, I don't think I can add anything here. Brian, Jamie, and Maya kind of cracked it. So summarize, we're broken. We remain broken in higher education. Let's go at it. And we need to basically look at this problem differently. Number two, I love what you've all said. AI is a personalization multiplier. I would like to expand on Brian's point and double click on like this level of permutations and personalization. And this is the example I'm going to give. Think about my brother and I. He's 2 years older. So this is a segment. International student with an accent, income, education, I don't know, faith, beliefs. Like we come from the same household, like we're the same human, but we're not. We're just so different. And then look at the edge. Today, as a parent of two little kids, I only have time in the morning. So you now have the personalization that I don't fit a persona segment, but in time, you also need to start thinking that I would only give you time to engage with campaigns 2 hours in the morning. So this idea of point in time. So this amount of permutations are humanly impossible. And the one thing that machines do much better is pick up all those patterns and allows us to do personalization with millions of permutations. That's the opportunity here. That John, Mary, and Tommy and the students, they can hear from us, very unique, personalized, but also in the time that they want to hear based on all these attributes that you just mentioned. So yeah, personalization, it's one of the most exciting things that AI is going to come and help us with, no doubt.
I want to keep following this thread of personalization, but Maya, I gotta say, like, I really appreciated your point on where is the sentiment coming from, because it's not coming from the students, and that's who we're serving ultimately. I am hearing this at conferences from people like us. So this is our perception, but it is not being echoed by the students, or at least I'm not hearing it. So that's, I just wanted to call attention to that point. So where JC just landed us, this idea that personalization really matters, right? So let's keep building on that. Let's keep building on the idea that we can use AI to help us humanize our work. I'd love to just get right into some specific examples or case studies where AI has done just that, where it's taken student engagement, whether it's admissions, enrollment, student success, any part of the institution up a notch without losing that personal touch. Brian, I'm going to pass it to you first.
Yeah, so many good use cases out there already. The one that came to mind for me immediately was Dr. Claire Brady and NASPA got together and created this report, The Transformative Potential of Artificial Intelligence. And one of the case studies they had in there was Ivy Tech Community College that set up AI monitoring to track student performance. And then it alerted counselors if students were at risk of failing a class. So from the time that they set this up, they identified 3,000 at-risk students. And after, having a counselor contact them and present them with resources and options and opportunities, they have a 98% success rate with students getting a C grade or higher. So that was the largest drop for them in D and F grades for 50 years. So just incredible to think of, just like by setting up a tool just to monitor them, and then having a human get involved and engage with them gave them a much better success rate.
It's a good example. I have one example to share, and I think most of you would agree that in the perfect scenario or the perfect world, every student would have their own dedicated guide to guide them through this whole enrollment and college experience process. But if your institution has those resources, that's fantastic. But I would think that many institutions don't, and using technology in this case can be a very strong alternative, and certainly better than not providing any support at all. So the good news is, like Brian, you mentioned, there are already some case studies and examples how AI can come in and help with that. And one example I came across was from a recent webinar I listened where Johnny Harper, he's a chief technology officer at Revolution Viewing in England, and he shared some data comparing the impact of human interaction and AI avatars during the online campus tour. So when a student ambassador is involved guiding the campus tour, they notice that there is a huge boost in engagement, somewhere from 12 to 74%. And I assume that probably depends on how engaging that student is and how well they guide the tour. But if they replace the ambassador with an AI digital avatar, they still see a rise in engagement, not as high, but it's at 9%. And I would argue 9% is much better than nothing. So what it tells me is human interaction, if you can support and hire students and train them and keep this program going, is still ideal. But if you don't have the resources and you are between choosing doing nothing and including AI in that process, I think this is the obvious answer. You can increase your engagement without adding any human element to your experience. So it's not necessarily about replacing the human, but it's enhancing what you have at a much, I would say, lower cost. And at this time, I know the technology is still evolving and growing. It might not be ideal solution, but Brian, like you said, it's going to continue to evolve. And right now, we are making some valuable steps forward with AI.
I've been a huge fan of Georgia State and all of their student success efforts for a long time, almost a decade now. And one of the use cases that they have for AI is integrating AI into the courses where they send direct text messages to students about their class assignments, offering academic support, course content information. And for the students that received those, particularly in the first generation students that received those, they earned final grades that were 11 points higher than their peers, which is 11 points is an equivalent of a full letter grade. So if you're getting 11 points higher in your grades, you're going to end up with feeling more successful. You have a better understanding of the content, and you feel like you are, as a first generation college student, able to do this. I think that's one of the most important things is I was a first generation college student, and being able to say, like, I can do college. I am getting good grades in college was really important to me. And so I think when you take this sort of technology that allows the student to get this personalized text messages that remind them of things, offer support if maybe they had an issue with a test or an exam, or a paper or something and it's offering them some additional resources, that's just an add-on to what a faculty member can offer. And it's an add-on that's having a big impact. And I'm really excited to see what Georgia State continues to do as AI evolves over the coming weeks, months, and years.
Selfish, very selfish product plug here. Okay. You give me one example. I'm going to plug in Element, of course. So, and I think Jamie and Maya just went through this use case that we've solved. Let's go back to JC or Jamie or Maya, Brian, Mallory, your 18-year-old self. How did you pick your major? Everybody here in the audience, how did you went through the process of selecting biology, chemistry, political science? That problem, it's classical information asymmetry. You got advice by the neighbor. I ended up at NYU because my neighbor went to NYU. Your counselor, the student, the website, whatever you have available at your disposal, you leverage and it informs where you're going. That is sometimes unfair and is a position of entitlement, privilege, multiple things. Many of us got so lucky that I had the right neighbor. Many of us did not have the counselor. Many of us, I did not have the educated parent. I love how Jamie said it. I can do collagen or something like that, right? It's a really incredible lift. So the things that happens with problem discovery is that this new way of doing search, not query based, like you put a word and kind of gives it, but actually semantic based, that the connectivity between the data points is not only a website and what you put in the website you're allowed to search, but you use these knowledge databases that could connect the website with social media and the catalog. And it's relatively easy to do today and impossible to do a year ago. Really is creating a different approach to student search. So think about the information access, the nonlinear journey. All of a sudden, like I start this way and ended up somewhere else, and linking to all the possible sources of information. That's what Element has figured out. It's a product called Discovery, and it's a really interesting way to do engagement at scale. If you have worked, for those of you AI nerds here, like us, if you work with Perplexity, it's a similar experience that will leverage everything inside the university to surface highly customized search, narrative semantic search experience to a student that is not one-dimensional. And it's fascinating to see how the student now says, I want to go to your school because you have vegetarian food in the cafeteria. And that, in a way, is addressing half of the world. So think about how important that is and how difficult it is to find it without this type of search pattern. I cede the floor.
Awesome. I am minorly obsessed with the Discovery product. I will say, I think generative AI search is like it is one of my predictions for 2025. Seth Odell and I discussed that on
Nice.
a recent Pulse episode. And I just, even at AMA, talking to, I did an interview with someone from Knox College, and he mentioned how he was in a room with faculty members. And when I was at an agency a number of years ago, we did the Knox College website. So I have a little more insight into that particular institution. And I remember it was a challenge to get different units on board. And like, people are nodding, like any website redesign, it is a challenge to get people
How
on
hard?
board. It's so hard. Content creation and migration is the number one thing that stalls out on a website redesign. And with AI
Mhm.
generative search being the future, at Knox, he mentioned like he watched in a room, the faculty members realize like in real time how AI is going to be pulling as a knowledge base from their web pages. And oh crap, if they're not up to date, zero click search out of
So,
Google is not going to be surfacing the right information. The chatbot is not going to be surfacing the right information. And like it's becoming AI is becoming a bit of a Trojan horse for getting people on board with getting their content updated.
Mallory, I built from what you're saying, and everybody, please understand this. We all have trauma from web projects, right?
It's so
Ma
true.
So
Mallory
much
can give
trauma.
you, Mallory can give you data therapy as it relates to web projects, but is the construct that data has to be perfect, garbage in, garbage out. So we put all this emphasis in clean up these content management systems, and they get outdated. So the beautiful thing about these new techniques is that the input, they don't have to be perfect. Because what these LLMs do, they kind of give you the layer of grammar that makes it perfect. So you can have imperfect information that is presented perfectly to the student in a personalized way. So keep that in mind. And it's a gigantic departure from this trauma that we all had in our prior lives without AI.
I think another area of trauma for us marketers is this ongoing, and this is relevant to the website because I feel like I've been hearing this for more than 10 years, but it's also relevant to any type of communication we're creating. How can we personalize it? How can we personalize it? My first job in higher ed, everyone was like, we gotta be like Amazon. And that was in 2008. And I really don't think we've cracked that code yet, but with this transformative tool called AI, like we're going to be able to get closer to hyper personalization, individualization, and being able to scale our campaigns as well. So, Jamie, I'm going to send this question to you first, because I think as institutions, right, they're going to have to navigate this fine line between personalization, hyper curation, and creepiness. I don't know, you're right. Like we need to ensure that our students are still feeling a genuine connection back to our institution and the institution's values, but not at the scale where it starts to become very big brother. So I'm curious to hear you sound off on that, Jamie.
Yeah, I love the idea of Big Brother. One thing I don't think we want is this like we're bots talking to bots, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's all the content is just AI generated and the students are using some sort of AI tool to like summarize that content into something that's bite sized, right? And so I think as we think about developing content and using AI for things like that, I think we have to keep in mind that we need to still be focused on telling stories. And I say this all the time. Facts inform, stories transform. And those stories are not going to be something that we're going to be able to move away from because it's inconvenient or it can't be automated. We still have to be focused on telling those really compelling stories that evoke emotion, inspire that connection to the institution versus just these purely transactional messages. And we also have to make sure that the way that content that is generated by AI is written, that we're doing whatever we can to make sure that it's in the school's voice, in the brand voice, it reflects the core values. And we need to be weaving stories and testimonials and accomplishments and all of that that authentically reflect that culture that we have in order for students to still feel that connection, whether that's through things like faculty quotes, student testimonials, alumni outcome stories, but we really need to ground AI curated content in that authenticity and in that storytelling. Because I'm going to tell you that nobody buys something just based on facts. You have to feel an emotion to make the kind of investment that a college degree is. I mean, we're talking about tens to potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars for an education. You have to feel more than a list of facts. You have to be compelled. And that's what stories do.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I mean, it's important for us in higher ed. We have limited resources most of the time. Oftentimes we're wearing multiple hats. So you have to think about where you can employ these, different elements of scale. So like use that personalized content and those automated campaigns where you can, incorporate that data into your responses so that they are personalized for these students, but that you're not actually having a human having to go in there and customize all of these like top of funnel communications that are going out so that they still feel authentic, they still feel relevant to the people who are receiving them, but it doesn't take a lot of time and maintenance from the staff. But then as you start getting down into the middle of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel and you get closer and closer to, application or enrollment, then you need to really start integrating the human elements in there to make sure that the students feel like they are being personally addressed and like they're going to have a place in the institution. They can see what other people in the environment are dealing with, and how they can be part of this community that we're offering to them as higher education institutions.
Yeah, I was talking with Devin Pergison from Forsyth Tech earlier today, and they have saved their staff 170,000 minutes of time because of the things you're saying. They're putting the AI virtual assistants and chatbots at the very top of the funnel, and they're just being able to answer so many of those transactional questions without ever having to escalate to another human. I actually heard Claire Skelton on the episode that dropped today on In Your Elements podcast also talk about this and all of the time that it has saved their staff at CMO, because they're able to let the chatbot kind of pick up on so much of the heavy lifting. So let's actually stay on the topic of chatbots since we're here. Or virtual assistants, right? Chatbots are so 2023, y'all. Virtual assistants are very 2024, 2025. So JC, I feel like you're our expert here in this. And I don't want to just hear you talk about the power of a virtual assistant, but that balance of efficiency between what AI is going to provide alongside the need for human engagement, kind of picking up on that thread that Brian just left us on.
Yeah. The threat of resources are limited in higher education, right? And there's one counselor or one higher education administrator, and there's, I don't know, 1,000 students who need that help. What we need to remember is that this new lens of agents, assistants that are conversational, aka chatbots, really do something really, really well. The secret sauce of higher education, the human aspect, is high-touch interventions. This is where we thrive. The student who comes to us and she doesn't know what she wants to study. The student who comes to us and is the first generation student. The student who has a loan, a family, part-time gigs, and all those multiple things. This is where the magic of us humans gets unleashed. But what happens in that magic is that sometimes we cannot deploy it because in between high touch interventions like this, there's meetings, emails I have to send, and 55 things that get on the way. This is where this is at. Understanding that these type of platforms truly give you 5 to 10 hours weekly so you can redeploy on high touch interventions. I really believe that we should start seeing the balance of productivity and efficiency on isolating the tasks that move me away from the high touch intervention, where I bring value to my student, my customer, whomever you're servicing, and then you let AI do what it does best: repetitive, automatic, transactional stuff. AI and chatbots are not magicians. They're fantastics at process. If there's something that looks like 80% of the time the same, fantastic. Then you do the 20% that is edge case, right? Think about it. It's just not answering questions. It's anticipating them. So what that means is that you know what that question is going to look like, and then so be it. I'll leave you with one more story, right? I remember in my first international trips where I was recruiting on behalf of the engineering school. I'm in India, and literally I would see, I'm not joking, 2,000 students in a night. 1,800 of them had the same question. What is the minimum GRE score? And then what do? We put FAQs, right? What is happening there is just that you bring that FAQ to the next level of automation and personalization. So my last point is we will divide the world of efficiency in the ones that automate and the ones that fall behind, right? And this is where I think is a really interesting thing, right? Circa 1995, 96, right? The schools that adopted online applications, the ones that didn't, right? It did it manual. And then now it's like foregone. The schools that adopted cloud-based services, the ones that didn't, and so on and so forth. So that's basically where we're at. The divide of the schools who will automate and the ones that fall behind. And chatbot technologies or agents are the first technology available to us to actually deploy that automation. Sorry, that was a little too long, but I'm too passionate about it. So
No, it actually gives me hope, JC, because so many institutions are held back by lack of human resources, and we have very ambitious goals, and we want to save the world and help everyone who comes to us. But we only have so many staff members working in admissions and advising and student engagement offices. So by being able to take care of those transactional questions and save the time for them to focus on more high value tasks, I think that's where it's at, and helping build those relationships, because we know that students who have one or two meaningful relationships at the college are doing so much better than those who don't have any friends. We see higher grades, higher satisfaction, higher completion rates. So focusing on creating those meaningful moments and inviting them to events and engagement activities, I think that's where we can focus if we can save some time on the transactional side. And when preparing to this for this webinar, I was thinking about at-risk students. I don't have any data to prove this, but it might be for many at-risk students, some of the barriers for them to continue their studies would be some sensitive topics like finances, health, maybe personal issues, family issues. And it's hard to ask for help. It's hard to go to your advisor and say, hey, I'm having those issues. And sometimes feel like they're being judged. So AI chatbots could be that first point of contact to get the answers to those questions and maybe get the help, because it's non-judgmental. It's like talking to Google. So I was just thinking about those types of students as well and the experiences that they're having at the college.
30 in many community colleges that I've done predictive modeling for, 30% of the blockers from 6-year graduation, 30% is financial aid. And it's not that they cannot find the money, it's just that they get lost in the system to basically activate programs and help type of thing. So just to quantify the aspect of you're on the money, Maya. Sorry, Brian.
No,
Thanks,
that's great. Yeah, and I think people who are concerned about where these chatbots are fitting in and what they're replacing, I mean, these are our decisions to make. The chatbot's not deciding that it needs to be on our admissions page. That's up to us. I'm always saying that these AI tools can do a lot of things, but it's up to us to decide what they should do. So when you're looking to integrate AI into your workflows, you need to think about, one of the first things you need to think about is if the task that you're replacing is something that provides opportunities for human to human interactions. I mean, we have our business school has a program where they're creating virtual TAs. So the students who are, working on their homework at 1 o'clock at night have a resource that they can go to, but we're not replacing our human TAs. So thinking about that, looking at what AI can do. AI is great at brainstorming and ideating, but don't do that as a solo activity. Bring in your group, bring in your team, go through all the human ideas, and then have AI help keep those ideas flowing and keep the conversation going. And the more diverse a group of people that you can collect in these brainstorming sessions, I mean, not only are you guarding against bias, but now you've got more ideas that you're creating, more different perspectives that you're having integrated into the conversation. You can have it do gap analysis to find out what you're missing, because as humans, we're very good at seeing what's in front of us, but we're not so good at seeing what's not there. And AI is just fantastic at that.
Well, I think one of the things that you said, Brian, really jumped out at me. And this idea of having TAs available at 1 a.m. And when I think about college students, when are college students doing their homework? It's not between 9 and 5, but when are employees on campus? it's between 9 and 5. And so their questions have to wait. They're leaving voicemails, they're sending emails, they're waiting for answers to questions, they're waiting for academic support. And sometimes some of the questions that they may have might be incredibly stressful questions around financial aid or, am I going to pass this class? What grade do I need to get to pass this class? And if AI can answer some of those questions, maybe they can sleep a little bit better when they do go to bed at 3 or 4 in the morning, when we're getting up to work out to go to work. That's really helpful for them. But one of the things you all have covered great examples of when to use AI, and I hate to be the person that's like, I'm going to talk about when not to, but I think that when you have a task that requires a really high level of accuracy, or it requires some real-time human judgment that needs to be applied to it, or decision making. I get a little bit uncomfortable with the idea of just like dumping applications into an AI tool and having it spit out who should be admitted and who shouldn't be, and then just relying on that. I think that we need to have some checks and balances to make sure that it's accurately analyzing a student. And also sometimes getting the AI set up to actually do the thing you're trying to get it to do takes longer than if you just did it manually. And in those cases, I think, don't rely on AI. But as I think Brian said earlier, right now is the worst AI is going to be for the rest of our time on this earth, right? It's only going to get better and better. It's not going to get worse. And so there might be a point where some of those things can be turned over to AI, and that can completely reshape what we do with our time in ways that is so much more significant and impactful than doing things like responding to the same question via email 10 times a day.
Yeah, right on. I want to take us back to something that we actually started this conversation with, and it's the idea of whether students even know, and if they do know, do they even care if we're integrating AI into these workflows? I'm going to drop a link in the chat in a moment. We had a really great student panel at our AI Engage Summit this past October, so you can hear straight from their mouths what they think about this, but I'm going to pose the question back to the panel, right? Do students really care if AI is involved in the communications, if they're getting the information that they need when they need it? And do institutions even need to balance that awareness? Like, is there risk of eroding trust if we're not thinking about this? So, Jamie, I know we just ended on you, but I'm going to throw this one right back at you.
Yeah, I agree with Maya's original point that there are a lot of places where students don't care about whether AI was used in the process at all. Where I do see some students seem to care is AI generated images on social media. It seems like it when somebody posts something that's super obviously created by generative AI, you will get people piling on to that. And a lot of times I've also seen parents, I'm in some parent Facebook groups. You see parents saying that their students are like, if I can't use this in class, why is the school using it to create imagery for their social posts? But I can't imagine a world where a student is going to say, this tool that I'm using at 1 in the morning that I wouldn't have access to except between 9 and 5, Monday through Friday, I hate that. And I don't want to be, engaging with that. So, I think it just depends, but maybe AI generated images will get to a point where a student doesn't care anymore. But I've seen so many cases where students are like losing their minds over some image being created with AI and it being credited as AI. And then they're like losing their minds on social media, social media then becomes a crisis, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah, I agree. My wife and I have 3 kids in college right now, so it's our built-in focus groups. And for them, they don't care, as Jamie said, they don't care where that information comes from, but they do want to know if the source is AI. So if you're sending out communications or if you're creating content, just be transparent about it. We actually have that in our, AI usage guidelines for our institution. Because if they find out later that your content is, created by AI, they're going to feel tricked, or they're going to feel like you were like taking the easy road or taking shortcuts. So just be aware of that.
I think it's It's also about what type of content is being created by AI. Like, not all content they would care about. I keep thinking about myself. Like, let's say I am a customer of Verizon or T-Mobile, and I have to call customer service. And my answers get immediately answered and so effectively and efficiently. And once my issue is resolved, I discovered that it was AI driven. Would I care? No, I wouldn't care because I got what I was looking for. And I think it's the same for students. If they can get their issues resolved effectively and efficiently, they don't care, and they would even prefer to receive that type of service. So my point is, human is not always better. Sometimes human have, you know, other issues. Maybe they're not in a great mood and they can provide great service. Or maybe you're speaking to a person sitting in India with a very strong accent and they can't understand you, and then your issue has to be escalated. How frustrating is that? So I think it's all about strategy and knowing when and how to integrate AI to serve your particular audience.
Similar, students don't care. They expect it, in my opinion. Digital natives, in my opinion, my prediction will evolve to Jamie's and Brian points of if it's attribution to AI and like how I may like it. What I think is going to happen is a TikTokification of creative, style stuff that looks like $100 million versus a TikTok vertical video for 30 seconds. Now that's the new norm. So probably we're going to move in that direction. So they don't care. They expect it. It will probably become more nascent and less weird to see these highly AI digitized futuristic pictures that don't make sense. They make you look ridiculous, and that may become the norm. So we're not there yet, to Jamie's point and Brian's point, but I think we'll be there soon.
All right, JC, I'm going to stay on you here. I want to talk ethics.
Oh no.
We haven't addressed it in the last 50 minutes, and that is also something that was pretty commonly talked about,
Yeah.
around the conference halls this fall. And so, if, from your perspective, what ethical considerations do we all need to be keeping in mind when we're using AI, to communicate with students?
Yeah. Look, it's a tough problem, and I'm going to be very, very honest here. It's the type of problem that us 4 or 5 here, and everybody's in the room, um, we will be given a solution, and as great as bad as it is, that solution is what we're going to have to work with. So it's above our pay grade. Number two, what is going to happen is bias in, bias out, right? So if these solutions, and this is going to come from regulation and like really, really smart people trying to solve these problems, that they need to know that there's going to be a bias that comes in, and if that bias gets picked up, it gets amplified. So if all of a sudden I want my pictures to be more diversity inclusive, and then also like you get George Washington with Afro-American traits, right? That's circa 2024 Google, right? um, these issues of ethics are very difficult, so transparency is where it's at. Knowing where, I mean, what is more biased? The financial models that you get a loan, you get you get a GPA and those type of things. In a way, they're biasing a lot of the things. They're picking up on the biases that we know exist. So being transparent about it and creating the guardrails, it's kind of the second point. And this is where I would always say, for the stage that we're in, whether it's around ethics or not, empathy as a design feature is kind of where it's at, because we're not gonna get it right. It's like teaching a class. um, don't say this to my students, but the first time I teach is gonna be a disaster. It's the the third attempt of the class that becomes better. So it's an iterative process, but in iterative design, empathy for ethics is kind of where it's at. So again, it's a very difficult problem to solve. Fortunately, there's a lot of smart people trying to solve this. And we just need to bring that transparency, understand the biases that is not fixing, and then double on anything empathy when it comes to this.
JC is absolutely speaking to my heart right now. My turn to plug. I'm writing a book that it talks about empathy and that human-centered imperative that we have. And whenever we do something new or have a new tool or have a new technique or something new about what we're doing, we need to be thinking about the humans that are at the center of it. And I think that if we have that human-centered lens that we're applying to how we implement AI, how we teach with it, how our students interact with it, I think that will help steer us in the direction that we need to go in a way that allows us to make more ethical decisions about how we're using AI and what we're using it for.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think like fundamentally as institutions trying to teach students, how to be successful in the world, which certainly includes using AI and understanding AI. I mean, our first concern is making sure that ensuring their privacy and that their data is secure. But then we need to be thinking about how do we create awareness and education within, all of our audiences, not just our students, staff, faculty, about the risks of AI, just so that people understand what they should be looking out for. I mean, I find myself all the time in conversations with people who don't even know what ChatGPT is, which blows my mind because, most of the circles that I'm in, everybody is talking about it all the time. But my neighbor, who's an electrician, was saying the other day that he hadn't heard of it, which was shocking to me. But, we need to establish guidelines or policies that establish, how these tools can be used, that all content must be human verified and transparent to, the consumers that we're dealing with, and that, we are mindful and aware of what the risks are of using these tools and that they have bias and they do hallucinate. So I think that's important.
Yeah. We've got 2 topics left before we wrap up today. And the first one was actually a question that Angelita dropped into the webinar chat a few minutes ago. She notes that she knows several people who don't want to go anywhere near AI because they think AI is going to take their job eventually. And again, around those conference halls, that was another major concern that I kept hearing this year. So how can we, I think we probably all disagree with that. I'm going to make that assumption. I don't think AI is going to take our jobs. I think it's people who use AI who may take our jobs. But as an institution, as a leader within an institution, how can we start in this industry building some trust among those who are skeptics, faculty or staff members, that AI is going to be this tool for enhancing and not replacing? Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big piece is getting people trained on how to use the tools and getting people to think about the tools as something beyond just a content generation tool, right? To think about them in the full breadth of what they're able to accomplish. But one of the things that I do with some of the leaders I work with is we talk about influencer maps. Who are the influencers in your organization that whether they're influencers for AI or against AI, that you can bring along on the journey and have them sort of like the Pied Piper bring the people they influence along on the journey and get folks kind of excited about something because there's people on their campus that they trust and respect that are excited. And it's not just this top-down directive. I think it has to be top-down, bottom-up. And without those both directions happening, I don't think that you're going to get the kind of adoption and the kind of acceptance of it that you need to be really successful.
Yeah, Jamie, you're talking about this, and to me, it's almost like it's a strategy of carrots and the sticks, right? The carrots is getting them excited and showing what's possible and how by using AI, they can save time and be more productive. And the sticks is, thinking at the macro level, any organization wants productive employees. And if they can hire someone who can do 10 times as much as someone who's not using AI, they will. So it's important for us employees to understand that. And it may be scary, but that's something that can keep us curious and continue exploring and learning. And it's like with any technology, you got to use it or you're going to stay behind, like JC, you said in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, AI is going to replace a lot of the tasks that we do. So if your job is filled with tasks that are repetitive and time consuming, you may need to start thinking about reskilling or, figuring out where you might fit. Because a lot of the processes that we do are automatable, but you need human oversight. You need expertise. You need experience in order to validate those outputs and make sure that they're strategic and aligned. And then, showcasing to other people how AI is being used to automate tasks is a great way for them to kind of see that this is just helping them. It's just another tool that can make them more efficient and effective.
Yeah. Really quickly, AI is here to replace tasks, not people. So let's change the narrative. But the opportunity, as Jamie just mentioned it, and Brian and Maya, it's that this role is emerging as a new skill. So the emergence of the AI champion is it's here in front of us. So
Mm.
just grab it and benefit from it, because what the AI champion is a translator. And if you're here, you're a translator, professional translator. And I don't mean about language. I'm talking about business skills, technical requirements, AI to business goals, enrollment goals, strategic management goals, you name it, right? So it's a really, really important shift.
JC, didn't you and Artis term this on a recent Generation AI podcast?
Yes, we did. But that's gonna take us over the 1 o'clock timer.
So, folks are going to have to go find that episode. All
You
right,
got it.
final question. And Brian, I think I'm going to toss this one to you to start, but let's look ahead to this next year. So, in your opinion, what is the next frontier for AI and making higher ed more human centric? And do you have any hot takes?
Yeah, I mean, as more and more institutions start adopting AI and figuring out where it fits into your processes, we need to think about what we're doing with the extra time that we're getting from using AI and make sure that that time is spent on ways that benefit our audiences. We're going to see all sorts of new technologies. We're going to see, I think, an infusion of AI agents that are specific for individual tasks that are going to make they're going to need access to data and content. As JC was saying earlier, we have to make sure that the data and content that we're using to train these tools is accurate and clean. So I think that's going to be a major thing that our institutions are going to have to start focusing on.
My turn for predictions. Really, really quick. Generative AI goes hyper personalized. So you think we've seen personalization is going to get 10 times better, faster, more dynamic. Brian, agents, this is the year of AI, basically agentic infrastructure, this idea of a digital worker, agents, assistants, whatever word we're going to be seeing, it's going to be a 2025 deal. Something really interesting, and feel free to chat me or email me about small LLMs. There's a really interesting thing coming to us that the LLMs that we know, they're frontier models like Claude and Chat GPTs, that type of thing, they're fantastic, but they're reaching certain maturation. So the small LLMs are forthcoming, lightweight, and very specifically maybe leaving devices like your phone and whatnot. That's going to be very interesting. And I'll leave you with the last one. As an analyst, I truly been seeing the transformation of I analyze in a language form. I don't make a chart. I just basically ask what is the pattern here. So the rise of the Gen AI analyst, it's in front of us, and I think I'm very, very excited because it's a trade that has been expensive and in a way governed by Python, Excel sheets, and whatnot. That barrier is being removed, and we're gonna get access to insight in a really rapid way.
Fantastic. All right. We will leave you on that note, y'all. Keep an eye out in your email. Next week, we will send you a recording of this webinar so that you can share it with your colleagues. We're also dropping the audio on everyone's podcasts next week so you can catch it and share it there as well. Thank you so much for tuning into the last Enrollify panel webinar of 2024. Do not forget, sign up for that February AI Engage event. And we so look forward to welcoming you back in 2025 with some really great programming, new shows, new things, new webinars, all sorts, bigger and better. Just what you expect from Enrollify. So we hope you all have a wonderful, safe, and lovely, restful holiday season. And hey, while you've got maybe a week or so off, what better time than to start exploring with AI? Just saying. Just saying. All right, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for
Have
having
a
us, Mallory.
wonderful rest of the year. Yes.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
panelists. You're incredible. Bye, all.
Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it valuable. Let's keep this conversation going on LinkedIn at Maya Demishkevich. I would love to hear your thoughts, questions, and suggestions for what you would like to see next on this podcast. Remember, by tuning in to The Hidden Gem, you're not just listening to a podcast, you are joining a movement of amplifying community colleges' success. Don't miss out. Subscribe to this podcast and notifications about our future episodes. Share it with your colleagues and college leaders to help make our colleges stand out. Together, let's make an impact. The Hidden Gem is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you will like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher education technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature selection of the industry's best as your host. Learn from Jamie Hunt, Jenny Fowler, Eddie Francis, Brian Gross, and so many other of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered all-in-one student engagement platform helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.